Today, the 26th of January, is the Liberation Day in Uganda that is commemorated on a yearly basis. And on this day in 1986, the President of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, came into power after a 5-year guerrilla war, and therefore the National Resistance Movement marks 36 years of existence. That and more stories in Aboli today. Thank you so much for being part of us and always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahabe Hajura, with first are the headlines. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni replaces AIGP Grace Akulo as CID boss. 11 local governments have not submitted their first quarter performance reports. Hundreds mourn at a funeral of 26-year-old protester. In our sports today, quarter-final at Olembe Stadium moved after deadly crash. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. Now, the President of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has appointed Major Tom Magambo, who has been in the Internal Security Organizations, as the new Police Criminal Investigations Director. He now becomes the 6th serving UPDF officer deployed by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in the police. We have more on this report. The acting UPDF spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Kakurungu, said in a statement that President Museveni has promoted Private Tom Magambo to the rank of Major and appointed him Director Criminal Investigations of the Uganda Police Force. Magambo has been serving as the coordinator of Eastern Africa Fusion Liaison Unit, a regional intelligence gathering center based in Entebbe. The center's mandate is to support and facilitate regional cooperation initiatives to curb terrorism and other transnational threats posed by organized criminals, and has 10 countries that subscribe to it, including Uganda, Burundi, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Tanzania. Major Magambo now replaces IGP Grace Akulo, who has since been rumored to be sick and unable to perform her duties for a very long time. By being promoted to the rank of Major, Magambo, who has been a private, has skipped 9 ranks: Lance Corporal, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Warrant Officer, Warrant Officer 2, Second Lieutenant, Lieutenant, and Captain. He now becomes the 6th serving UPDF officer deployed by President Museveni in the police. Others are Major General Godfrey Tumusime Kasigazi, appointed today as the Deputy Inspector General of Police to replace Lieutenant General Paul Lokech, who died last year. Brigadier Serunjeji Damolida, the Police Crime Intelligence Director, Colonel Jesse Kamnanwire, Police Director for Human Resource Administration, Brigadier Godfrey Goloba, Police Director for Human Resource Development and Training, Major General Jack Bakasumba as the Police Chief of Joint Security. Away from that, the Permanent Secretary Ramadan Gobi has said 11 local government and 81 central government votes have not submitted their first quarter performance reports. Now, Gobi made the remarks while briefing the media on the quarter 3 expenditure releases for final year 2021-2022 and the cumulative budget releases for the 3 quarters. We have more on this report.
The Permanent Secretary Ramadan Gobi said that accounting officers were expected to submit their accounting warrants by January 7, 2022. Therefore, those that have not submitted their warrants shall be personally liable for delayed public service delivery, including failure to pay salaries by the 28th of every month. He urged accounting officers to ensure that they pay wages, salaries, pensions, and gratuity by 28th of every month. He stated all accounting officers must prioritize payment of service providers on time and clearance of domestic arrears to avoid further accumulation of arrears. Releases for quarter 3 is 5.3 trillion shillings, which is 23.4% of approved budget, and cumulative release of 17.7 trillion shillings, which is 77.7% for 3 quarters. Cumulative release, including debt repayment, external financing, and local revenue, amounts to 81.5% of the total budget. The total approved for the financial year 2021-2022 is 44.77 trillion shillings. He explained that Q3 expenditure limits were prioritized, taking into consideration, among others, the cabinet decision to prioritize health and social protection, security and presidency, agriculture and industry, governance, Uganda Revenue Authority, judiciary, legislation, electoral commission, and missions abroad. With regards to local revenue effective 2021-2022, Gobi said the government decides to release local revenue for local government votes as and when they remit to collections to the consolidated fund.
Thank you so much, reporter. We take a quick break. We shall come back with more news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In international news today, hundreds of Sudanese mourners marched in the streets of Khartoum on Monday at the funeral of a 26-year-old who was killed at a protest near the presidential palace. Now they prayed together at the funeral and chanted in unison as they carried the body of Mohamed Alish through the streets. Our reporter has more.
A medical group said 3 more people were killed in Sudan as thousands of people once again took to the streets of the capital and other cities on Monday. The fatalities brought the death toll among protesters to at least 76 since the military takeover on October 25th. Protesters, mostly young people, also marched in the city of Omdurman on Monday, according to the pro-democracy movement, as well as in the provinces of Kassala, Red Sea, Jazeera and the already restive Darfur region. Activists said security forces fired live ammunition and tear gas to disperse protesters in several locations in the capital, including around the fortified presidential palace. The Sudan Doctors Committee said security forces killed 2 protesters in Khartoum, 1 shot in the chest and a second in the head. A 3rd protester was killed, shot in the head and shoulder in Madani, the capital city of Jazeera province, about 130 kilometers southeast of Khartoum, according to the medical group. Relentless protests have rocked the country since a military coup 3 months ago. The fresh crackdown will likely complicate UN efforts to find a way out of the country's crisis.
May the soul of the deceased rest in eternal peace. Moving on, in international news, Senegalese ruling coalition suffered crushing defeats in the capital and other major cities in Sunday's local elections, according to local media reports, in a vote seen as a key test for the president. Take a look at the story. Barthélemy Dias, the candidate of the opposition coalition Yewi Askanwi, who won the municipal elections in Dakar last Sunday, celebrated his victory with a caravan in the streets of Senegalese capital. Barthélemy Dias said that this is a victory of the people of Dakar, a victory of dignity and pride, and recalled that Dakar has been humiliated by President Macky Sall throughout his reign, adding that Dakar has decided to take back its place as a capital city. He said that Dakar has made a choice by sending a strong political signal, which he said should be a mandate of rupture so that it can rediscover its programs for the exclusive benefit of the people of Dakar. Analysts view the vote as a litmus test for support for President Macky Sall, who is 60, who the opposition suspects is planning a bid for a 3rd presidential term in 2024. The vote was the first in the West African country since deadly riots last year, sparked by the arrest of 46-year-old opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Sunday's vote was to decide the mayors of more than 500 municipalities and the heads of Senegal's 46 departments. Away from that, presidential candidates in the Libyan elections held a forum on Monday in the capital Tripoli, renewing their call for elections. Now, the aim of the initiative is to overcome several obstacles facing the political processes.
Libya failed to hold presidential elections on December 24th, raising anxiety about the future of the country and the fragile peace process. One candidate said that it's essential to mobilize public opinion. Sherif Al-Wafi, one of the presidential candidates, said that the electoral process is fading away and therefore they must study this matter in order to at least move the Libyan opinion or the electoral voters, because the 2,800,000 voters have a direct impact on the candidates, whether presidential or parliamentary. Another presidential hopeful wants the involvement of the international community, namely the European Union and the United Nations. Ali Al-Majdoub said that they will speak to the international community, the European Union and the United Nations mission, and will oblige them to take a serious stand at this stage and not as a matter of deception or cooperation, with the idea of forming a transitional government whose term could extend to 6 or 7 years, wasting these elections. As for the Parliament or the High Council of State, Ali claimed that if they wanted to have a word with them, he would be ready to talk to them. Last Thursday, Libyan presidential candidates introduced an initiative to the United Nations mission in the country.
Moving on, Mali's transitional government asked Denmark on Monday to withdraw immediately the 100 or so soldiers who recently arrived in the country to take part in the European Special Forces grouping Takuba initiative by France. The Malian government said in a statement read on national television and published on social networks that this deployment occurred without its consent. Denmark announced last week the arrival in Mali of 90 men, mostly elite soldiers and military sergeants, who are supposed to participate in Takuba to protect civilians against jihadists in the so-called Tree border area of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, and be based in Menaka, eastern Mali. A grouping of European special forces designed to accompany Malian soldiers in combat against jihadists, the Takuba Task Force, was launched in March 2020 at the initiative of France to share the burden with its European partners. Exceptional in the context of the security and political crisis that has shaken Mali for years, the request for the withdrawal of this Danish contingent comes in the midst of a tug of war between the junta and part of the international community that wants to force it to return to power civilians in the near future. Relations with France in particular, which has been militarily engaged in Mali and the Sahel since 2013, have deteriorated severely. Since the Organization of West African States, ECOWAS, imposed sanctions on Mali on January 9th, supported by France and various partners of the country, the junta has clung to the sovereignty of the territory. Thank you so much, reporter. We take a quick break. We shall come back with the business news. Welcome back from the break. This is Africa Today. In a business news today, Tropical Storm Anna has killed at least 34 people in Madagascar and 3 people in Mozambique, while knocking out power in Malawi, authorities in the 3 countries said Tuesday. Take a look at the story.
The storm, which formed over the east coast of Africa's largest island, Madagascar, has brought heavy rains, causing flooding and mudslides in the capital, Antananarivo. The latest report from Madagascar's Disaster Management Agency on Tuesday showed that 34 people have died and nearly 65,000 have been left homeless since last week. Several low-lying districts of the capital remain under high alert and emergency evacuations were launched overnight. John Razafimandimbi, Rescue Unit Director in the Disaster Management Agency, told the media that they are in the process of evacuating people from flooded areas. across the Indian Ocean, a storm made landfall on mainland Africa on Monday, bringing heavy rains and strong winds in Mozambique's central and northern districts. Mozambican officials on Tuesday said 3 people were killed, with at least 66 others injured. More than 3,800 people have so far been affected, while a clinic and 16 school classrooms were destroyed overnight, according to the National Institute for Disaster Risk Management.
Turning your attention to our health news today, Nairobi has a new type of vending machine. These ones distribute milk. So Eric Andino, a shop owner, has stopped selling packaged milk and has switched to selling milk from a vending machine. Now shopkeepers prefer them because they are so easy to use, maintain, and uses low power. Take a look at the story. The emergency of ATMs is also helping farmers improving their profits. The milk is delivered to the milk ATMs where the retailers sell the milk to buyers. When a customer arrives at the shop, the owner just keys in the amount that the buyer wants and the ATM automatically dispenses the milk. Eric explained that the advantages of this ATM machine is that it is very easy to maintain and it is very fast to serve customers. And thirdly, when you store milk behind it, it is ever fresh so that the customer can drink directly. People prefer products from the ATM machine simply because they are cheaper. The milk ATMs could pose a health risk since the hygienic conditions of the containers in which it is collected, transported and sold don't necessarily meet the standards laid out by the Kenya Dairy Board Act. Martin Jagi, Quality Assurance Officer, Limuru Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society, cautioned that despite the convenience provided by the ATMs for the farmers, shopkeepers and customers, food safety needs to be observed. Automated vending machines are propping up old Kenya. The ATMs sell a variety of products from milk to cooking oil to water. In Africa Today Sports, the deadly crash at Olembe Stadium, which plunged an entire country into mourning, killed at least 8 people on Monday. One day after the tragic incident, CAF President Motsepe announced that the match due to take place in the Olembe Stadium had been moved.
One day after the tragic incident, Patrice Motsepe, the president of the Confederation of African Football, has broken the silence and announced adjustments. He first expressed his deepest sympathies to the grieving families. He added that the game scheduled for Olembe Stadium on Sunday is not going to take place and said that out of respect for their partners and governments, it's going to take place at Ahmadou Ahidjo, which is in Yaoundé. During the press conference held at the Ahmadou Ahidjo Stadium in Yaoundé, Motsepe also announced that he wanted the investigations report to be completed by February. At least 8 people, including 2 women in their 30s, 4 men in their 30s, and 1 child and 1 body taken away by the family, died after the stampede outside a game opposing Cameroon to the Comoros took place on Monday. World Governing Body FIFA issued a statement in relation to the incident, and Vincent Abaka, the captain of the Indomitable Lions, offered condolences on behalf of the team and the entire staff.
Thank you so much for being a loyal audience and always being part of us. This is Africa Today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We shall keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.